Okay, this is the most exciting talk of the day. Schedule C. Can you believe it? It's going to be inspiring. So what I've done, I've added a few other things into it besides Schedule C, but here's something about that. So I'm John Ward, and I'm so happy to be here again. I'm going to be around till January now, so you'll be seeing more of me. Minus. We just got to figure out how to switch the slides. There we are. Oh, that too. Those ones. So, key topics. Some highlights for instruments recently, just a couple on that. What's new in the version 8 templates. How to complete Schedule C. And then some issues, because I signed lots of these instruments now, and what we've been seeing things that I'd just like to mention that have come up in the instruments themselves, the draft ones in the summary of site condition and in the application packages themselves. So just a little reminder about what's going on with the volume of these instruments coming through. So this is for determinations. We had 42 of them last year. It's a huge spike. And then we have approvals in principle. They've been tapering off. Only 8 last year. Certificates. The red are the risk-based standards, and the blue is the numerical standards. Look at that. So now you know why Dave and Lucy are back in the office catching up with the backlog, because there's a big increase in the volume, and they hadn't been able to catch up. 203. 87 of those were for one site, 41st and Granville Shell Station. And then this contaminated soil location agreements, only 2. It's remarkable to see what's happened with those. We believe sincerely that all that excess soil is now going to permitted facilities. So there's an exemption. So here's what the new templates look like. And they took about 2 years to prepare. It was agonizing. I've been involved in the last number of versions of these things, and this was the worst ever. You have to like detail. So, what are some changes that are common to all the templates? Well, the really important thing is we're expecting these new templates, version 8, to be used for all submissions with dates submitted to the Society after April 1st. So we're still seeing some old submissions coming through with the version 7 templates, and that's okay. But now, only in the last few weeks am I seeing actually more of the version 8 template instruments coming through. So how the new templates look, in general, is the first section before the schedules is a lot shorter. On every one of the templates, it all fits on one side of a page, whereas it used to be a lot longer. So the location of site description data has been moved to Schedule A. The environmental media uses has been taken to Schedule C, and there's a whole new Schedule D on documents. And there was a clause that I've been seeing forever that qualified professional has to be on site for future subsurface work. That's been moved to the covering letter. Now, how does a Schedule C template look different? It's now in nested sections. And the first part of the highest level in the nest is the site part. And for most instruments, you don't even see that. There's a new subsection for environmental uses. And in some cases, I'll point out, you can have multiple uses for an environmental medium. And we see that often for water, drinking water applies, aquatic use, and so forth. And then there's 5 different types of environmental quality standards. There they are. And we've got some rules about when you use those and when you don't. And those rules are described in Procedure 12, mainly. So the way it's organized now, Schedule C is organized, you have this hierarchy. First level is site part, and if there's only one part, then you don't even have a site part. You leave that part off. Then the next level in the hierarchy is environmental medium use, and there may be, as mentioned, several media. And then below each medium, the type of standards as they apply. And then after that, under each medium and use, the list of substances. I'm just going to mention something to Catherine. You've been asking me to give this talk for a while, but someone said today, oh, we've been using these templates now and it's no big deal. So I hope this talk is going to help a little bit at least. So here's a step-by-step instructions on what to do. In the beginning of Schedule C, there's a whole page of italicized instructions. Read them. It tells you what to do. And read sections 9.3 and 9.4 of Procedure 12. Step 2, get your information together. How many parts do you have in your site? What are all the environmental uses? What are the types of standards you've got? And what are the substances with the standards? So I wouldn't even bother trying to fill out the schedule until you've got that all assembled. Step 3, get rid of the parts of the template you're never going to use, you're not going to want. So start deleting. Delete, if you only have one part, then you don't need to have the text for parts. If you don't have all the environmental media being involved and uses for them, get rid of those. Get rid of the template instructions. That doesn't shouldn't be included in the ending result, in the final template. And then you might need to add additional sections as well. There may be more environmental medium uses you have to add. You might have a site that's got several parts, like three or more parts. So you might have to add extra parts. And only then would start entering the detailed information. So you start with the site part number, and where do you get that? Hopefully you would have it on the site plan in Schedule A. And you might want to include a PID number, for example, or a meets and bounds description. You could do that. Then you provide the environmental medium for each part. And what I would suggest you do is, the wording is quite particular, and I would look at the regulation and the template itself for how to word that. And then list the substances. In Section 9.4 of the regulation, of the Procedure 12, has detailed instructions on how to list the substances. I learned today, because I've never used the submissions manager myself, but the submissions manager contains all the substances as they're spelled in the regulation. So that's very important information, and if you want to get the spelling right, use the submissions manager. And if you don't want to get the spelling right, you make me unhappy. The sixth step is to double check your work, because if there's errors, we're getting to the point now we're seeing the same problems over and over again, and we're not going to, it's not our job to fix up the problems that you haven't bothered to fix yourself. So you're going to, the way these should get fixed is you fix them yourself. So we'll send them back. So I'm going to give you 3 examples now how these Schedule C would look for a medium, simple site, a medium complexity one, and a really complex one. So the first example, there's only one part. There's all one site. There's only soil contamination. It's only commercial land use, and they only use numerical standards. So this is really simple. You see the little header, Schedule C, substances and uses. You see commercial land use is the italicized in bold. And then there's only one type of standards, numerical remediation standards. Notice we say remediation standards because it's a certificate. If you looked at a determination, it would just say numerical standards for determining a contaminated site. It wouldn't say remediation. And then you list the substances. So there's no part. It doesn't say part A, it's just blank on the part. The second example is more complicated. So you got both soil and groundwater contamination. You got soil use would be commercial, water use would be drinking water and fresh water, and you use both numerical and risk-based standards. Here's what this certificate looks like in Schedule C. So you've got three uses. You've got commercial in bold italics, and then 2/3 down it's the drinking water line, and then the 80% down it's the freshwater aquatic life line, and under each of those you have the applicable standards. For the soil there's numerical remediation standards and the risk-based remediation standards and the substances under those, and then for the last two uses, the drinking water and freshwater, there's just risk-based standards for those ones. So that whole big template gets boiled down, to something that's quite small quite often. Unless you're doing a determination, when there's a big negative determinations have a long, long list of substances. Quite delightful, wouldn't you say, Sam? Yeah. Sam's nodding, yep. And here's the really complicated one. It's got two parts. The company owns both parts, that's good, so it can all be done under one certificate. There's a commercial development on a roadway, and there's industrial land use for the roadway. This isn't in Vancouver. The soil and groundwater contamination, and so drinking water aquatic life use, and both types of standards were used. And there's what it looks like. So part A of the site, that's where you see in these ones. There's two parts, so you get into the part thing. And then they look very similar for the less complex example with the uses, and then after that, the standards for each use, and then the substances. So it's pretty simple, but I'm thinking as I speak, it's nice to talk about it with everybody, but I bet you'd like to see this written down somewhere too. So I see a few nods. Any other people nodding? Just smiling. They're all tired. Boy, this is going to go really quickly. Okay. Question?
If you go back to your exemplar, your schedule...
That one?
The administrative guidance, backward one. That showed the soil that had BTEX and then VPH, LEPH. Your exemplar, to meet risk-based remediation standards, the administrative guidance says you go in the order of the schedules, and for soil, VPH and LEPH are in an earlier schedule than benzene, ethylbenzene, toluene, and xylene. Shouldn't they be reversed?
I bet. I wouldn't be surprised. I just grabbed this from someone's certificate. I didn't do that check. But I think the lesson here is that read...
I will check your submissions on this one.
Okay, the lesson here is read Procedure 12 for how to fill out lists of substances. Okay, this was, this is about filling out the Schedule C, and I should have done that. I apologize. And I hope you're right, and I imagine you are. But I was more interested in knowing about the hierarchy and how you get rid of the parts and all that kind of stuff.
That would get sent back then.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what, Guy? If you had done that, I would definitely send it back. That's right.
John, given you've got benzene, ethylbenzene, and so forth on this one, should there not be also a line for vapor, that the site has been remediated for those volatile substances?
I don't know. The devil's in the details. There may be vapor attenuation factors that were applied, and it wasn't a contaminant. It's quite possible. Okay, we'll talk about the trench worker next, guy. Okay. So, here's some issues to do with recent applications for instruments. First of all, just the draft instruments. So Lavinia, where's Lavinia? There she is over there hiding behind. Lavinia and I are signing off most of these instruments at the moment. And then Lavinia's got a 3-month stint, and then Peter Kickham is going to be taking over from Lavinia. And we've got a log, and for every instrument now, we enter in the log the site ID and the problem with the instrument, and we're tracking all this. And Dave Lockhart is also contributing to that. So these things are just part of this log now. So it's easy to write this talk because I had the log to look at. Missing trench worker clause, that's one of the first ones. Just so you know, as an aside, the trench workers clause is, it's complicated, and we're still having discussions about that. We had a talk from Peter Kickham yesterday about that, and I'm not sure where it's going, but you might see some changes in the future to do with that. The next was the not selecting correct uses for remediated environmental media in Clause 1 of Schedule B. So I don't know if you can read that. It says, any changes in land, vapor, water, or sediment use must be properly identified, blah, blah, blah. And people aren't selecting the correct uses that apply. So we have to, Dave has been fixing that. But we get tired of fixing it, so please be careful about that. Another one is in the version 8 template, I mentioned that we moved that clause about the qualified professional having to be around for future subsurface work. Well, and that's in the cover letter. But lo and behold, there it was in the version 8 template. What? It says version 8 at the bottom, but it's still in the draft instrument I got. How could this be? So what I'm hearing is that not all the draft templates are coming through the submissions manager, and people are somehow doing customized versions of version 8. So, and then the spelling and the formatting of substance names incorrectly. Again, if they're all spelled correctly in the submissions manager, how could it possibly be that they're spelled incorrectly? How? It's unbelievable. And then this last one is astounding. I wrote all these, I edited all these templates and know what they look like. And here is the version 7 template, but somehow at the bottom it said version 8. It's very entertaining. Here's another one. Actually, this is not good. See the substances that are circled in red? EPHS 10 to 19. EPHS 19 to 32. You will not find those in the contaminated sites regulation. You won't. Now, those were in a draft instrument that were for a site that was blasted all over the Times colonists several times. And there was intensive consultations with neighbors with sending that draft instrument out to people. So, and you know what? Normally I don't. Other people check the substances, and I don't check. But I thought, gee whiz, this is a pretty important instrument to be sure it's correct. So I looked, and that's what I found. This is not good. If you use a submissions manager, those didn't exist. They don't exist there. It couldn't have happened. I'm not bawling you out, am I? Now here's another one that's just come up in the last couple of weeks. If you're using both numerical and risk-based standards, and you've got different parts to your site, how do you know which parts those different standards apply to in a visual kind of sense? Wouldn't it be nice to have a kind of a site plan where this part's got that use and that standard applying to it and so forth? So you're going to be seeing an administrative bulletin being drafted to explain all that. That's one of the things I've got to do when I get back. Now, how about summaries of site condition? Thank you very much for the earlier discussion on summaries of site condition. I think there's room for improvement. This is Amy and Annette. So we're going to have a chat with you when we get back. I don't know where you are. The preferential pathways, there's a section there to say they've been considered, and sometimes it's blank. We don't know what's happened. We need to know. There's section 4.7. There's these little tick boxes for offsite migration. Sometimes it just says NA, there's no ticks. We don't know what's happened. So we need to know that information. It tells you whether or not the site's been, all the contamination has been correctly delineated or not. You heard earlier from Ned and Amy, missing information to support no drinking water use determinations. So it gets sent back. Sometimes we can't read the signature page, or it's illegible, or it's incomplete. It has to be signed by an approved professional. And where there's arm's length, and the ones that I look at, normally there is no arm's length, but where Lavinia looks at them, that's more common, I would think. And then insufficient detail when listing substances. So this is one we have worked with the society on. Sometimes it says a PCOC is just VOCs, and we don't know if there's, in my case I was thinking there was a dry cleaner next door. We don't know if they looked for perk or not. So we've got some guidance 17, completing summaries of site conditions. It'll be coming out sometime, and it talks about what to put in different parts of the summary of site condition with respect to substances. And then the application packages themselves. Communications records, AG 11 says you've got to give us communications records, and we don't get them sometimes. So back it goes. Performance verification plans, that's something it's been around for a few years now, and those can be missing. And then whether or not the contamination has been fully delineated or remediated, sometimes it's not clear that that's been done. Of course, you need a pre-approval these days under Protocol 6 if you're not going to be doing the full delineation or remediation. And then the last thing I thought I'd mention here is this disclaimer. And we had a question again about disclaimers on reports. I'll just point out that our contaminated sites services application form has a place where you tick off that any waiver or liability clause doesn't preclude our ministry reliance on the information in the report. So you're signing to say that. So whether or not you have a disclaimer on your report or not, I think is irrelevant. You've already signed to say we can rely on it, and that's good enough for us. So I don't know from your perspective if those disclaimers are helping at all, but they're certainly not, in our view, impinging on our ability to rely on those reports. And if we couldn't rely on the reports, why would we even bother opening them and signing off the instrument?
John, I think CSAP, we asked that the waiver preclude ministry reliance and CSAP reliance, not just ministry reliance.
So, would you say that again, Guy?
Where it says report authors must ensure the report waiver or liability clauses do not preclude ministry reliance, we also ask that it doesn't preclude CSAP reliance on the information in the event of a performance assessment or something.
Actually, I think I disagree with you on that, Guy, because CSAP is not relying on the report. CSAP is just processing it. It's the AP who's relying on the report, right? And the AP is acting on behalf of the ministry, so really if the ministry can rely on the report, the AP can rely on the report. CSAP, we just process it, right? They just get it in, they check it, and they send it off to the ministry.
Did everyone hear that? The argument is that it's not necessary for the society to rely on it, and it's not even necessary to state that the approved professional relies on it, because the approved professional is making a recommendation to the ministry, and as long as we can rely on it, that's enough.
It's in our AP practice guidelines right now to make sure that statement's in there. So I guess we have to change that then.
Sorry, there's a distinction between the CSAPsociety and the members which I think is what Mark
course
was
there
saying.
is.
It's the member, we're asking that members can rely on the report, not that the CSAPsociety can rely on the report.
What I suggest you do then is, put your heads together, come up with what you want, send us a letter, and then we can amend our service application form if we think it's appropriate.
If we didn't put something like that in the clause, then how would they do a PA? They wouldn't be allowed to look at our reports and comment on it.
Yeah, but the PA is reviewing the AP's review. The PA is not reviewing the reports as a review provider. They're just reviewing the adequacy of the AP.
Right. You know what? I think this will be a good topic for internal discussion amongst the members of the society. No, that's good. I brought it up for a reason. And then the last plea is to use the submissions manager. It will solve a lot of problems for us and for you if you use it. Okay? And there might come a point, when if it's obvious you're not using it, it might take a lot longer to get your instrument signed off. Thank you so much.